Hey, you know what's even better than Week 4 of the Commonwealth Collection? Week 5. In Week 5, bring Star Wars back into the fold. Indeed, more Star Wars product. I know there's probably a lot of you who are getting sick of seeing this stuff, but there's also a lot of you who seem to be really into this stuff, and of course we have a lot of it. This stuff needs to go somewhere, right? So why not here? Stuff's always fun anyways, isn't it? I mean, maybe when I get overly nerdy, it tends to get a bit boring.
Actually, this is the true lore of the Angry Bird Plush.
Okay, I'll readily admit that one, but anyways, all items that we showcase today will be going up for sale on my eBay shop starting June 1st. Yes, in June now. Saturday, June 1st, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll put up a little calendar graphic here. I always like doing that when it's a new month. So mark your calendars, do the date thing, blah 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 blah. Here's a box. It needs to be opened, so let's go ahead and do that. Oh yeah. I believe this is actually a reused box. I think this is the CWT number 5 box, yeah. We emptied that box out at some point. And whatever box these items were originally in, I just put them in this one, because this is a nicer box than whatever that was. Some of these boxes tend to be pretty rough, and well, whatever gets the job done, right? Okay, let's make sure I get all this. Stab myself here. I need a lightsaber for this. This will be much faster. We might find one in here, to be honest with you. Be some sort of lightsaber. May not be sharp. Okay. We're all set. Okay, here's the plastic bag. No one needs this. I always like throwing that. That's pretty satisfying. I think that hit the camera. At least the tripod. Alright, here's the box. Let's see exactly what's in here. I think a lot of these items are more along the lines of Star Wars 1 and not Star Wars 2. And in fact, they are early Star Wars 1 items. So these come from before any Star Wars items were officially put into production. I think the first production run was what? J12, so that's October of 2012. It would come out around November, December 2012, and coordinates with the game's release, right? So, anyways, let's start. And the first item of today's unboxing isn't actually a Star Wars item, but I feel as if it'll be instructive to what we're going to discuss a lot today. And so, here it is. This may just look like some ordinary run-of-the-mill 3-inch bomb plush, right? I mean, perhaps it's a sample, it's missing the typical red plastic clip you normally associate with a 3-inch bomb, right? So what exactly is this thing? Well, if you guessed it was a backpack clip, you are terribly mistaken, because this is actually the 3-inch bomb shaker. Yes, indeed, the shakers. I mean, a lot of you probably won't even be familiar with what I'm talking about, but there's also a lot of you who will recall the 2013 Toy Fair booth and a small section entitled Shakers, with a Z, interestingly. I guess they wanted to be quirky before it was cool to be quirky, but what exactly is a shaker? That has long been a mystery in the Angry Bird plush community. They look like your pretty typical run-of-the-mill plush, just like I was talking about. This looks like a run-of-the-mill backpack clip, right? I mean, it's the same exact pattern, just doesn't have the clip. And there were some larger ones that just looked like a ordinary kind of 5-inch or 8-inch plush, except they were in a special retail display box. But what exactly are shakers? That is the question. And what makes them different from your ordinary plush? Well, let's find out. Answer that question right here, right now. So around back, of course, you have your typical sewn-in label. This is a 3rd gen sewn-in label. That's how these were done up, I guess. There's that, and it also has this black pull string. Kind of like a certain cowboy doll from a certain Disney Pixar movie. But what exactly happens when you pull the pull string? Because that's what you do with a pull string. So let's check this thing out. What does a shaker do? It does exactly what it says. It shakes! How about that? So this little guy has an itty-bitty motor inside. And this pull string activates it. Let's do that again. And it is super satisfying. It makes a little wench sound, and it slowly retracts, just like a proper pull string should. Just gonna keep doing it. It's quite satisfying. It's got quite a bit of tension in it, so you actually have to pull with a bit of force to actually get it all the way out. Now, is this proportional to how far you pull it? Yes, it is. So the farther you pull it, the longer it will shake. Let's do it front angle. Now that is really neat. Now I'm not sure, obviously it has some sort of battery in there, you'd have to assume, right? Not exactly sure how they'd get a motor to function. So I don't want to pull it too many times in case it ever stops working, but obviously these did not go into production. These were only seen at Toy Fair 2013 and disappeared forever. But I guess they were developing them earlier than that based on the 3rd gen Sonin label. But there is another one in here, another bomb. I think there's only 2 bombs in here. The other one has a 4th gen Sonin label, so that one might actually be from Toy Fair 2013, but this one also could have been there. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know what they brought to Toy Fair. So how about that? This is the 3-inch bomb shaker. Try and find the other one, but it's buried inside the box, and just go ahead and find it naturally. It's somewhere here, but I bring up the shaker in the larger shakers. I mentioned there were some larger ones as well that looked like your typical 5-inch or 8-inch plush. Well, there are some Star Wars versions of those. Yes, these are the special edition electronic samples. We have quite a bit of them in today's unboxing. This is the 6.5-inch Han Solo. So they are not 5-inch, they are not 8-inch. The motor inside these is considerably larger because it actually has replaceable batteries. It's got a Velcro compartment in the back. And inside houses a battery pack with a little wire that goes to the plush. And the idea with these is instead of a pull string, which is kind of a weird gimmick with an Angry Bird plush, but I quite like it, instead this one has a little button on the top. So you press the top of his head, and he will start shaking and rattling. I think if you saw my 2023 plush collection video, you actually get to see these in action. So, although they are not called shakers, that's exactly what these are. These are reskins, a repurposed shaker from the 2013 Toy Fair. Not exactly sure when they started developing these. You have no record as to when these were first sampled, but I have to assume it was late 2012, 2013, early 2013, something like that. But we have Han Solo. It's identical to your typical Han Solo plush. We have the pilot Luke Skywalker with the blue accent instead of the yellow one, which was used on production, so that's how you know it was probably before mid-2013 when these officially went into production. I have to assume 2012 because they changed that pretty quickly. So he's got a Velcro compartment in the back as well. Does the same exact thing. And then I think we have a bunch of them in these bags. So I think I went through all these at one point and labeled them D and W for does not work. So unfortunately, a lot of these are corroded out. I mean, I tried fixing them with WD-40 and all that. Just couldn't get them to work, unfortunately. But the novelty is still there. It's probably tanks their value because they don't actually work. But we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi here. We have another Han Solo. We have yet another Han Solo. We also have Princess Leia. Is that it? I do believe that is it for these Star Wars Shakers electronic samples. Oh, that one fell. Whoops. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and show some footage of these in action, okay? So you actually get an idea for what these actually look like in action. And if you can get it working, that's pretty brilliant. I'm assuming I won't sell these for top dollar considering they don't work at the moment, but if you can really try for me, perhaps you can get it to work, but I was unsuccessful. Anyways, roll the tape. He won't work unless I hold it like this, like right up next to him. I have no idea why. What the hell was that? Do you not want to have a seizure? Apparently, Leia wants to emulate Obi-Wan. Do not follow the orders of the Jedi. Han! God damn it, Han, you're letting the team down. So as you saw, or more accurately heard, these guys just use the typical Angry Birds sound chip sounds, and in fact, it's just the stage completion celebration, which gives credence to the idea that these were simply later derivatives of the original Shakers concept. So those were done up in probably mid-2012. These were probably done up later in 2012, but interestingly, the original Shakers for the classic set were the only ones that they ended up bringing to Toy Fair, but this all generally kind of lines up if these guys were done in and around Toy Fair. And they only did this Pilot Luke, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Obi-Wan. Kind of an interesting character selection, right? I mean, we have 2 characters from Wave 2, and we have 2 characters from Wave 1. I mean, granted, they're main characters and all that, and I guess Pilot Luke, he's on the hang tag. You got Obi-Wan, you got Leia, and Han Solo. It's a fine character selection and all, but it feels like the most fitting character for this concept, that being Chewbacca, of course, is kind of a glaring omission here. This feature feels right at home for a character like that, with the little fluff to shake to fluff tag. I want to say that right. Shake to fluff. They put that on some of the later Wave 2 releases of Chewbacca and a lot of the claw machine variants. But anyways, these are the Star Wars Shakers. Very interesting concept, and I'm glad to see the larger Shakers preserved in some way. And it's really cool to see this earlier version of the Pilot Luke with the kind of different pupil placement and, of course, the blue accent on his helmet, which they later changed to yellow in accordance with a render update that Rovio sent them. There's that guy. He's probably objectively the most interesting of the 4, but they're all pretty interesting on their own, have to admit, right? So there you go. The Shakers. Alright, moving on. We have more electronic samples, but these ones are of a different variety. This is the lightsaber Luke Skywalker. How about that? So, this guy, well, I mean, he's basically identical to the regular Luke Skywalker plush. Nothing totally different besides this lightsaber that's stitched to his side. So here's the lightsaber I was looking for at the beginning. It's appears to be hollow. It's like a piece of plastic with a very thin layer of the fabric going around it. It's pretty interesting. It's got, alright, it just looks like the regular lightsaber print on there. At least it's not on like a dog bone looking thing this time, but there you go. There's your Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber. Now, I do believe this one doesn't actually have a electronic function to it. It's got no visible Velcro, and it's got no weight to it, really, at least compared to some of the other ones I've felt. By the way, those shaker samples feel quite heavy due to their motor. That's why they ended up shit-canning the concept, but this guy, there are variants of it where you can actually press the button or press the, I guess, in this case, slap the bottom of the plush, and he'll make all sorts of Star Wars-specific noises. Check that out. That is pretty cool. And this was a piece of merchandise that we only recently discovered. At least, I found it in a Toy Fair booth photo. Hiding right under our noses the whole time, and, well, here it is. There. And then speaking of more lightsaber samples, here is yet another one. This one I don't believe has any sort of electronic function either, but again, I have seen some that do. In fact, I have some that do, and I showed them in the Plush collection video. Though I don't know, this one actually, no, you can press the button on this one. Just has no battery compartment. So, at least accessible one, that is. have to cut him open to replace the batteries that he has, but you can press the little button on his lightsaber, and in theory, the lightsaber would light up, and that would look pretty cool at night. I think I have a photo of it in action, at least the way it was originally meant to be. I'll put that on screen right now, but here it is. It's basically identical to the previous one, just a bit of a different pattern this time, and actually has a button you can press on the lightsaber. So that's pretty cool. All these, by the way, are HK85, so HK85 seem to be the factory they designated to make all these oddball Star Wars electronic samples. So Luke with a lightsaber, this is probably the way they should have done them. I'm kind of surprised they didn't do them this way. They just had the retracted lightsaber on the production ones. This looks a bit more proper to me. Guess maybe they didn't want to use plastic on these guys. It would definitely cost more to actually give them some kind of electronic function, and it's kind of interesting. For a set that didn't actually have any electronic functions in production, the Star Wars set is one of the few sets that never got any sound chips at all. You can't find a single variation that has them. Retail, good stuff, any of that. And it's kind of ironic for them to have a set with all sorts of special functions like that. But anyways, here's your Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber. And then here's another one along the same lines, but this is one that I don't think I've ever shown before. So this is your conventional 8-inch Han Solo plush, but he comes complete with his blaster gun. So how about that? It appears that Commonwealth was thinking of releasing these Wave 1 Star Wars plushies with accessories that mimic their ability in the game. So you got Han Solo with his blaster gun. And the idea is here, there's a little button on the blaster. I believe it's somewhere around here. In fact, I can feel it. And there's a little light bulb on the end of the blaster. It's a little red light over here. And you press the button and it blinks. At least, that's what it did. It unfortunately no longer works like the Luke Skywalker because, well, there's no exposed battery compartment on this guy. I mean, on both these plushies, it wouldn't be on the actual plush itself. It would be within the accessory because the only thing attaching the accessory to the plush, it's not a set of wires, it's just a little bit of thread. Actually, quite loose. You can see it just dangles around like that. It's kind of funny. The blaster itself is just a printed piece of like faux leather. It's on both sides and it's a high quality print. It must just be the vector file that Rovio gave them, but this is a pretty neat plush, and I believe just like the Luke, I do have a picture of this thing actually in action when it used to work. Unfortunately, I am too late to the Commonwealth collection, and I couldn't save these guys. And I don't suggest opening up their accessory because that's just going to make things 10 times worse. I have no idea what kind of batteries these use, but I just assume it's those little button batteries that the regular plushies use. Surprised it went dead, but unfortunately it did. So, this guy's ability is lost to time, unfortunately. But anyways, still a pretty cool plush, and the accessory itself looks pretty cool. Nice little duo with Luke Skywalker here. It's funny, their accessories are on opposite sides. Luke is holding it in his left, and Han is holding his in his right. And I think this would be kind of a neat little gimmick. You could have alternate variations of these, like you could have the Jedi Luke Skywalker. You could have him with a green lightsaber and black robes. And you could have Han Solo with a light that's tinted a different color. You could have a blue light for his upgraded version in the game. I think those would be pretty cool collectibles, and that'd be an easy little recolor for Commonwealth to do if you're looking for easy recolors, but unfortunately, these guys' time has passed. Alright, moving on. We have some Angry Birds Star Wars pillows. Now these never went into production either. These are, of course, samples. I have quite a few of them in here. This is the Chewbacca. This guy is incredibly soft. This is right up there with Tony, I would think, if not even softer, because it's got the extremely long cut fur. But these are two-dimensional throw pillows. These are, what, about 8 inches, 9 inches, something like that. So they did these with some of the classic characters. I believe they did Red, they did the Minion Pig in production, right? We looked at the Minion Pig in the very first unboxing of this wave, and we saw that giant red pillow. Those are the two-dimensional throw pillows that Commonwealth did, and there was a sample bomb, as I recall, but they were also considering doing Star Wars versions. These are HK102, copyright 2012. They probably are circa 2012 anyways. So we have Chewie, we have Princess Leia. This one has, just standard Stella face. That's kind of interesting, but I believe this does look like a official render of the character. It's completely blank on the other side, which I guess you can leave that blank. I mean, who really cares? Who's ever going to see that? But it's a bit lazy, I guess. And interestingly, in her hair, there's like little bits of plastic in there, I guess. That's just the crinkling material. Huh. That's interesting, but these are pretty cool looking pillows, right? Despite being two-dimensional and pretty simplistic. Here is the Luke Skywalker. So these are all the front-facing renders. I believe I do have the original vector files for all of these as well, but they were just plastered on pillows. And this one has, I believe, they all have embroidered features, right? I believe Leia's eyes are embroidered. Chewie, where's he? You got Prince. See, his mouth is a print, but everything else is embroidered. And then mostly everything on Luke here is embroidered. Bit of kind of this matte fur and kind of felt material. Of course, he has the lightsaber as well. His lightsaber is the only part of this that's printed, as far as I can tell. And his backside is blank as well. And then there is also a Stormtrooper. Of course, backside is blank, but it doesn't look as glaring on this one. Would have been nice if they continued the printing on the back. But again, these are just little throw pillows. You put them on your bed or on your couch, and they just kind of look good from the front side. But again, remarkably, these look fairly decent for just being two-dimensional throw pillows. These could have easily gone into production. These are all HK102, so I'm assuming these are all from the same run of samples. They use very similar, if not the same materials as the Star Wars Plush toys. The 5-inch, 8-inch, and all the other sizes. So, again, here they all are. Star Wars throw pillows. I happen to like the Chewbacca one the most. It's just the softest and seems to have the most stuffing in it as well. There you go. Those are pretty neat. Wonder if I'll sell these as a set or individually. I don't know. You'll have to let me know if you're interested in something like this. The Stormtrooper's nose is a bit, I don't know. It's got some, like, spots on there. It's a little dirty. It can probably be cleaned, like most of these, but you gotta use something awfully specific to not damage the plush because, well, I mean, it is a plush pillow after all. Alright, so these are the Star Wars two-dimensional throw pillows. Put all these down there. And then this next character is a highly anticipated one for sure, at least ever since I revealed it in this wave's trailer, and it's probably been anticipated since 2012 anyways, but here it is. The very first sample of the Blue Squadron. For those of you who have seen my Star Wars 2 documentary, which I seem to reference a lot, you'll have seen the final variation of this character, which looks pretty much 100% game accurate. But then there's also this guy, which predates pretty much all Angry Birds Star Wars plushies. Wave 1, Wave 2, Star Wars 2, you name it. This guy predates them all. And I mean, you can tell, right? Looks, I wouldn't say rough, just off. I mean, granted, all the details are there. They got the printing, the symbols on the side. Got the visor up front with the kind of orange color that it's supposed to be. Granted, they didn't really achieve it the way the final variation did, but I mean, the effort is there. And it even has the cross-eye design for blue, which granted was the design they were using for blue at the time, but it's nice to see it here. The more game accurate design. But interestingly, this guy uses matte fur and just all the colors are quite off. So, I mean, you got the Rebel symbol on the side, and while I'm on the topic, I should probably clarify that this is actually the Rebel Pilot plush, not the Blue Squadron. The Blue Squadron would technically be 3 of this guy, right? But I've always known it as the Blue Squadron, so that's what I call it. There's this stripe going down the middle of the helmet, some various prints on the side, and a little bit on the backside there. But then you have the visor. And the visor is objectively the weirdest looking part of this plush. It uses this piece of clear plastic, pretty similar to what they did with the final variation of the X-Wing Luke, but it's not tinted, and instead it's clear and placed over this region of like burnt orange, which appears to be stitched to the blue part of the plush. And I guess they thought that achieved the effect they were going for, but back to the drawing board they went, because, I mean, objectively that does not look very good. Looks quite rough and incomplete, but I guess if they wanted it to look better, they could have had the orange contour to the visor, but that's not what they did. It's squared off pretty much and looks quite weird. And he also has an upside down Commonwealth tush tag around back, copyright 2012 HK102, which is also quite weird. There are 2 of these in existence, and both of them have an upside down tush tag. This is just how they sampled them. So definitely one of the plushies of all time right here, but again, highly anticipated character for many, many years, over a decade in fact, because it was one of the playable characters in the game, and, well, I mean, it didn't get a plush, and that's obviously a glaring omission from the Wave 1, Wave 2, and, well, the canceled Wave 3 and Star Wars 2 sets, so there you go. The Blue Squadron. And then ironically, this next sample most certainly predates the Blue Squadron, and I think you can tell. Oh my god. What is going on with this thing? I mean, why the long face? I mean, I can get you an ice cream, Obi-Wan. If that's what you want, will that cheer you up? Oh my goodness. So this is most certainly the first ever Obi-Wan Kenobi sample that Commonwealth ever made. And it just uses the vector files that Rovio gave them for the wick up top and the lightsaber hilt, and of course the details on the face. I mean, I guess they at least gave an effort on the cloak. It's just a separate piece that they've stitched to the rest of the body, but... And then unbelievably, he does have a tush tag around back. It is a 3rd generation tush tag, copyright 2012. So, of course, this guy was probably done up pretty early in 2012 when Commonwealth first got word that Rovio was doing Angry Birds Star Wars. So can you imagine if the plushies that Commonwealth was making looked like this? This is just all the plushies that they would end up producing. I don't think Rovio would have kept them around very long if this was the slop they were putting out, but admittedly, once again, just like Blue Squadron, it does have its charm, just I'm not sure it's in a good way. Let's just say that. Once again, one of the plushies of all time. Obi-Wan Kenobi. The first Obi-Wan Kenobi. Genesis. And then these next 2 plushies, well, they're a dynamic duo that are infamous because of a certain Commonwealth Instagram post celebrating May 4th, which we did a few weeks back. We have the R2-D2, or as I like to call this one, the R-Pill D2, because, I mean, look at it, it's got this shiny texture to it, and frankly, it looks like a pill, because it kind of looks like an egg, but it's not, doesn't have enough width at the bottom to be considered an egg. So that's an interesting one, almost looks like silk. Then you have his mate, C-3PO, which was also featured in the May 4th post. This is the first ever C-3PO sample that Commonwealth made, and I think they nailed it pretty much off the bat. I mean, it looks almost identical to the one that went into production. The only difference on this one are the head and tail feathers, which are actually more detailed in this one. They're 3-dimensional and actually have embroidery on them for the accent details. Always sucks when they downgrade this for production, but it's what they ended up doing. Has a 4th generation Sonin label HK98. And then R-Pill D2 has the same tush tag as the Blue Squadron. Copyright 2012 HK101. Commonwealth. So, the only one missing here is that sad face Luke Skywalker. But you do have these 2, and, of course, they are the dynamic duo. Just not from the same sample run, and it seems awfully random for Commonwealth just to grab these 2 and not the production ones, or at least for C-3PO. I guess I can kind of see why they would just pick any old R2-D2, but I guess this one looked similar enough to production, but again, just a weird combination of plushies for that random Instagram post that they didn't even have to do. That's the only reason why we even knew these existed, but here they are, in the plush. Pretty cool. And then we have the last item of today's unboxing, and item is a fair description of what this thing is, because it is most certainly not a plush, though it may kind of look like one. This is the Death Star zippered carrying case, which I first showed in the Star Wars documentary when we first discovered this thing internally. Check this out. Can I puff it out a little bit? It seems to be a little bit deformed. Come on, get that front-facing view again. So they made plush versions of this thing, but there was also this zippered case which was meant to carry around your Angry Birds Star Wars vehicles, which was another line they were going to do that once again got canceled. There were so many different canceled Star Wars lines, it's honestly unbelievable that anything made it to production. Just think none of it would be successful. Then again, something like this, I mean, it's an idea. Not sure it's a good idea, but they did it, and it's quite the cool novelty, so check this out. So it's got a zipper over here. You can open this thing up. It's perfectly squeaky clean on the inside, too. This is quite minty. Open this thing up, and you can see there are vehicles inside. So we have the Star Destroyer. This thing is actually glow in the dark, too, which is super duper cool. This is the 5-inch Star Destroyer. We have the first sample of the AT-AT here. We have the Darth Vader TIE Fighter. We have the X-Wing fighter, and we also have the Millennium Falcon, or the Mighty Falcon, one of the lost mighty creatures within the Commonwealth collection with its slingshot up top. These are all the 5-inch variations because, well, there really aren't typical 8-inch variations, 12-inch, 16-inch, but I mean, they could have made those at some point. These are probably more apt for your backpack clips or even little pencil toppers or something like that. Even the X-Wing fighter here has little seats for 2 different characters. If you had a R2-D2 and a Pilot Luke, they would fit well in here. These have HK102, once again, this copyright 2012 Commonwealth Tush tag. They all have this, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. From the same run of samples. These were later than those, well, the Blue Squadron and that R2-D2, though. And this guy is green, just as a placeholder color. So those are the vehicles. They look quite awesome. I don't know if they're 100% accurate to the game, but hey, they gave an effort, and it, once again, was an interesting idea. Again, not sure these would have been best sellers, but the Death Star might have been appealing, especially if they released it as a plush. It's a zippered carrying case, though. I'm not entirely sure. The prints are really cool, though. Nothing really three-dimensional besides the ears, which are plush and stitched to the top. Oh, here. We also have this thing, too. Here's the other shaker bomb, which also works. This is the... Actually, I thought this was a 4th gen. This is actually a 2nd gen. So I guess they were just using any old tag they had lying around. So maybe these don't actually mean anything, unless they were developing this line in 2011. But there's the other one, and there's the Death Star and all of its vehicles, I suppose. But there you have it. That's today's unboxing. I think the Death Star would be the highlight of it, but you make your own assessment. The R2-D2, the Blue Squadron, all those shaker samples. I think this was an interesting unboxing, to say the least. Plenty of oddball Star Wars items, at least as oddball as Star Wars items get, typically. So be sure you check out the eBay shop, June 1st, Saturday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have any comments, questions, or complaints, you can let me know in the comment section below. And with that, I say, peace out.